Welcome to Scoliosis Dialogues. My name is Ron El-Hawary, and I'll be co-hosting today. We are doing a preview of Virtual IMAST 2021. I'm joined by my co-host, Cynthia Nguyen.
Hi, this is Cynthia. I'll be joining Ron on this episode.
And we'll be discussing the launch of Virtual IMAST 2021, which is launching today, April 21st, with self-paced on-demand content, which will be available until the end of June 2021. Just as exciting that we have live virtual content for Virtual IMAST starting April 23rd to April 25th. We'll be joined today by the current IMAST chair, David Skaggs, as well as the chair-elect, Ahmed Alani. So David, you've been involved with IMAST now for quite some time and have had a hand in planning this meeting in particular. IMAST had a virtual meeting last summer, and this year is also a virtual meeting, displacing the meeting that was scheduled for Dublin, Ireland. Can you give us a bit of an overview as to how this year's meeting will be structured and how it may be different from last year's?
Yeah, so first off, IMAST is all about innovation. We're looking at what are the most innovative techniques that the SRS members should hear about and learn about and try to think, what should I be incorporating into my practice? And what we learned last time is doing it over many weeks doesn't work. We wanted to deliver as much information as possible to our membership in a way that they could listen to it, which means not taking too much time. So it's only going to be 3 days. And it's only going to be 4 hours each day. So I would say there's almost no reason why every SRS member couldn't dedicate 3 days to learn about what's innovative in spine surgery.
That's great, David. Thanks very much. Are there any sessions? So that sounds like about 12 hours of live content, if my math is correct. Are there any sessions from your perspective you think are can't miss, absolutely have to attend as an audience member for maximal learning?
Yeah, so one of the great things about IMAST is you're always striving for innovation. What's new? Now, as we think about it, if we're honest with ourselves as spine surgeons, what's new isn't always the best thing 10 or 20 years later. And somehow people want to jump up and down and tell everyone when they're doing something new and great, but it doesn't seem to be quite as publicized or available what didn't work. So one of the sessions I'm really looking forward to is called The Bandwagon I Jumped Off of. And then we'll have Larry Lenke say why he does fewer VCRs. Amir Samdani will say why people don't use vertebral body staples anymore. There'll be a session on peak implants. How come people don't put bouncy plastic in the spine so much anymore and expect it to fuse? And I think that sections like that are things we really need to learn and be honest with ourselves about. And it's really difficult to find that information. Everybody wants to be the visiting professor and say the new wonderful thing they're doing, but nobody puts on their website, hey, I did this and this didn't work. So I'd say this is a unique situation in which not only can we hear top world experts say what doesn't work so well, but afterwards we could ask them questions. How would you do this next time? How should I go about learning what to incorporate things into my practice?
That's one of the beauties of IMAST with its focus on innovation and short-term follow-up. But in particular, it's very easy to learn from others in the field who are advancing the science and the innovation and to try to implement those changes more broadly and to learn from each other. Are there any bandwagons that you've been on in the past that you've jumped off of?
Yeah, I'd say when vectors first came out, or vertebral expandable prosthetic titanium rib devices. As we were all taught, a lot of people were putting these big stiff pieces of metal right across the chest cage. And what we learned is when you stop the ribs from going up and down and bone grows all over that, maybe that's not the best thing to do for young kids. So I'd say one of the things I've certainly changed over the years is I very rarely am cutting between ribs and opening up big spaces between ribs and putting metal from rib to rib. And it was a learning curve. How about you or Cynthia? Any bandwagons that you two have had that you've jumped off of?
I think I'm too young to have that experience, but I do remember one of my mentors from fellowship saying that it's always good to be the second wave on a new technology, not the first, not the last, but I mean, someone has to be first so that they can share the knowledge with everyone else. And so I'm so glad you're doing this session, because it really exemplifies why we have these meetings in the first place, because it's all about spine surgeons sharing knowledge with each other, whether it's knowledge learned through hours of labor doing a research project or knowledge gained from hard-won experience. So thank you for having this bandwagon session.
Yeah, innovation is interesting. As you said, Cynthia, that old adage is never be the first, never be the last, but somebody needs to. And there is a kind of a bell-shaped curve described Moore's law of diffusion of innovation. And I think where IMAST really comes into play is on the far left of that curve, where you have the early innovators who have developed the technique, and then the early adopters. Then you need to kind of jump that chasm to allow more people to adopt it as the results come out and the complications come out. And I think to make that happen, you need open and honest reporting of complications. And I think IMAST has always been a great forum for that. And it sounds like this year's meeting will follow suit.
Do you remember that that there was this big promotion of doing an L5 S1 fusion basically through the anus? Like there was a big promotion about that. Everyone was doing that and nobody does it anymore. So we're going to hear Isadora Lieberman say why people don't do that operation anymore.
That's all good. That was an important point, David. That was before my time as well. So it'll be interesting to hear from Dr. Lieberman, why that began and why it ended. It looks like a great few days of live content, and then there's a self-paced content as well, starting April 21st, go until the end of June. And I'm really looking forward to engaging in the virtual component. But I think these days we're all missing some of the live component of meetings. What do you miss most about the live meetings, David? And is there any way we can try to emulate those things virtually?
Yes, I just went to my first live medical meeting last week in Florida. And what was nice was the camaraderie. It was so nice to be together with other spine surgeons. And as we all know, we learn kind of half of what we learn, or maybe more than half of what we learn outside of the rooms when you're just having the one-on-one discussion. And I think we're all going to be going back to that. And when you talk about the really new things, you're worrying like, hey, should I be adopting this? And oftentimes you hear, most honestly outside the room. And some of the things we're going to be talking about at IMAST this year a lot is robots and navigation. And we're going to, try to reproduce that outside of the room discussion. So for both robots and navigation, we're going to have people look at various systems and say, how does this system add up to the next system? And then have discussions that maybe aren't had until the nighttime at a bar, where someone says, this is my most common or my most worst complication using a robot, or my worst complication using navigation. So we're going to try to reproduce that honesty that you sometimes find outside of a room.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to that, David. It's always those kind of meetings behind the meetings where we always learn a lot about each other. And kind of dreaming ahead a couple of years. We know the meeting this year was supposed to be in Dublin, and it's scheduled in Dublin in 2023. If you were to choose a place for some camaraderie outside of the meeting, and you had a half day, would you choose the Guinness Brewery for a tour, or would you go for Jameson Irish Whiskey Distillery?
I would choose to make it a full day and do both. Anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
Perfect. Is there anything else that you think the viewers or the listeners should know about the upcoming meeting?
So we don't want to do things like just talk about tethering and say, hey, it's new. Like everyone's maybe tired of hearing about, hey, this new thing, tethering. So we're going to take it the next step. We're going to have a session on what doesn't work with tethering and how do you get out of those complications.
Thanks a lot, David. We're looking forward to a great meeting.
Really nice to see everyone.
Emma is a volleyball player who was diagnosed with idiopathic scoliosis at the age of 12. After 2 years of bracing and continued curve progression, she found hope with a new scoliosis treatment. Tune in May 11th to hear a first-hand account of her journey to a straighter spine.
Hello, Scoliosis Dialogue listeners, this is Cynthia Nguyen here, continuing this preview of IMAST episode. I have the pleasure of talking with Dr. Ahmet Alane, a pediatric and adult spine deformity surgeon and director of the Comprehensive Spine Center at Acıbadem Meslek Hospital in Istanbul, Turkey. Dr. Alane Ahmet is also past chair of the SRS Education Council, the current chair of the SRS Global Education and Spine Deformity Committee, and chair-elect of the IMAST committee, which means he's going to be chair of IMAST for next year. Ahmet, you are a very busy man. Thank you so much for finding the time to join us for this podcast.
Oh, thank you very much for the invitation. So I'm really very happy to be with you guys here.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Earlier in this episode, we got to talk to Dr. Dave Skaggs about the sessions he is most excited about for this year's meeting. What is the session you are most looking forward to?
Cynthia, the most popular topics are chosen. Each one, I believe, more interesting than the other for the very short period of time that we have. And in summary, some of the very attractive sessions for me are topics related with new practices and cutting-edge state-of-the-art technologies such as non-fusion scoliosis surgery, robotics, and minimal invasive approaches. There are also sessions on general issues which we are still having difficulties and there is still a lot of controversy, such as PJK. But I think one interesting session I don't want to miss and can't wait to listen to is the session, Bandwagon I Jumped Off, which looks critically at the techniques and approaches we started with high hopes but had to abandon.
Yeah, that's always a favorite every year, I think. It's always so awesome to see, luminaries in the field such as yourself, every once in a while admit to having made some mistakes, but then imparting their really important lessons to everyone else so that we can all learn from them.
Yeah, I certainly agree, yeah.
As someone who's only a few years into practice, one session that I think is going to be very unique that no other meeting has really done before is the session on Sunday about the early career surgeons. I was wondering if you could just give our listeners a little bit of an explanation as to what that session might be like.
I think that is a very, very important session where our young colleagues are discussing on cases, and we did the same in last year's IMAST, and that was a great success, and we really got a lot of feedback from the young generation. So I think this is also one of the most striking feature of this meeting. Yeah.
Cool. What's the process for coming up with topics and session ideas for IMAST?
Well, SRS always tries to assess our learners' needs, and we try to meet those needs when selecting the program. So we have a call for session topics that will open also for this year's IMAST on May 1st, where the membership can propose topics that they think would help others with their practice. For IMAST specifically, the theme is always going to be cutting-edge technology and new practices. So it is important to remember that this is an international meeting. So we really want to hear what's new from deformity practices all over the world to make a very beneficial program for the next year.
So any member of SRS can propose a topic idea?
Yeah, any member can propose a topic idea. So they can propose a good agenda according to what is in their mind. But at the end of the day, of course, program committee is meeting and getting the ideas. It may not be the same topic that was proposed, actually the same agenda that was proposed, but this gives us a good idea. And by collecting other ideas, I think we really are able to do the best program in that way. So especially from OUS part of the world, sometimes they may have different ideas, different important topics according to their region. So it's really very important if we get globally all those proposals to make a very good agenda, which will be beneficial for all over the world.
That's great. And I noticed that the IMAST committee is quite diverse in terms of location geographically all over the world. That's really, really good to see. Off the top of your head, do you remember how many topics were proposed for this year's meeting?
I don't remember. I think it was something around 20, I believe. And so we met several times as a committee. We had some virtual meetings to decide on what the best is. So I think it helped us a lot. All those proposals helped us a lot. And I believe this year's program will be something really interesting. I believe will be much different than last year, because, last year we didn't know that we would organize a virtual meeting, and it was just after the pandemic has started. So we had to prepare a very fast. We had to act very fast and prepare the agenda that we had last time. But this year we try to plan especially fast-paced programming that keeps our learners engaged with to-the-point information. We had the luxury of planning for virtual from the beginning this time. So I think it will be a more interesting and more beneficial meeting for the participants.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've been involved with the IMAST committee for quite some time, and I'm sure last year it was just so hectic trying to pivot from that in-person to the virtual. What are some other lessons that you guys learned from that experience in planning for this year's meeting, where you did have more time to prepare for a virtual version?
Yeah, coming back to last year, actually. The world was in crisis, and deformity surgeons, including me as well, were globally disputed and discouraged. Frankly, last year when we got ready, or when it was the time for IMAST meeting, scientific meetings really did not matter for us, who were much in that chaos. So I think this year we switched some things up with the formatting of the program in response to last year's engagement numbers. And the feedback came from last year's meeting. So this year we prioritized ICLs, cases, and top-rated papers based on the 2020 data. So I think it will be, as I said, it will be a very good bombarding of all the new information for the state-of-the-art technology. And then we will have also some really interesting case discussions, which will be really very beneficial for all of us.
Great. One thing you've mentioned, which I think is really important for SRS members and our other listeners to realize, is how important their feedback is after these meetings is for planning the next one. And you mentioned multiple times that a lot of the content and a lot of the format changes that your committee has made was actually based on feedback of the people who actually attend these meetings. So that's just an important reminder that we should be filling out those evaluations as best as we can, as thoroughly as we can.
I think that's very important. And so we will release the surveys, and we will try to do the gap analysis, right after the meeting. So hopefully we can finish all of them at May. So we can have our committee discussing all the feedback came from our participants latest in June. And so for next year, we hope to prepare really the best meeting, best of IMAST, because I'm the chair, it should be the best.
Yes, it will be. Great, cool. All right. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but is there anything else you'd like our podcast listeners to know about this upcoming meeting?
Well, we really want learners to feel encouraged to ask questions, join the conversations, and give feedback. I think it's very important to have an interactive meeting, which will be hopefully like a live meeting. We definitely miss seeing everyone in person. And so I ask all the listeners of this podcast to take this opportunity to check in and give us their thoughts.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And we are looking forward to attending this virtual meeting, starting live sessions on the 23rd, starting on-demand session currently playing. And we will see you all there.
Oh, thank you very much, Cynthia. So I hope to see you in person in our annual meeting, hopefully in St. Louis this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. thank you everyone for listening. This concludes our preview of IMAST episode. Please remember to tune into the meeting itself. The pre-recorded on-demand sessions start being available today, April 21st, and live sessions will start in 2 days, April 23rd and go till April 25th. And also please remember to join us for the next episode of Scoliosis Dialogues. The next few episodes will continue focusing on this year's virtual IMAST meeting and will include highlights, best of, and other really interesting and important topics.
Yes, thanks for joining us on this podcast. We look forward to some more podcasts on IMAST over the next couple of months. And once again, thank you, Cynthia. Great job co-hosting. And thank you to our guests today, David Skaggs and Ahmed Alani.
The Scoliosis Research Society is a nonprofit professional organization made up of physicians and allied health personnel. Their primary focus is on providing continuing medical education for healthcare professionals and on funding and supporting research in spinal deformities. Please visit srs.org for further information.